Hey everyone, it's Tommy Canale and welcome to Before the Lights podcast, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment made their mark. Please go to our website, beforethelightspod.com, and follow us on Instagram at beforethelightspod. Time to get this show started. Go get yourself a coffee or grab a drink. Tell your family, friends, neighbors, and strangers it's time to have an in-depth conversation with our guest. Attention all those foodies or anyone who loves food, which is just about everyone. On today's show, we have the owner of The Art of Catering, corporate executive chef of Nichols & Company, Food Network Food Truck Face-Off winner, Next Food Network star runner-up of Season 7, and the owner of Sinful Subs in Las Vegas. He is simply known as Chef Vic Vegas. Chef, how are you today?
Man, I am hanging in there, brother. I am good. Right now I'm looking around me and I'm happy to, be here to even talk to you and even hear you and everybody listening, man. So I'm grateful.
That's great. We're going to pick your brain a little bit and go back to some days back in Brooklyn and then bring you back into Vegas and go over pretty much your whole career.
You got it, man. I'm here. Excellent.
You started out as a self-trained chef, basically. Do you know where or when the love of food came in? Did that come from family?
It really did come from family, Tommy. They were a little more strict back in the, I'd say, somewhere around 1980 in Staten Island. They didn't particularly let us out so much in our family. We played sports, we had fun, we did our stuff, but we were pretty much on a short leash. So that resulted in a lot of time at home. And of course, coming from an ethnic Italian family, there was a lot of cooking. I was a little husky busty, and they fed me very well. So I was always hungry, and they were cooking, and they always had me help them. Or I was just close to it. It was just right there, from the aromas to them doing their thing. And, it turning out to be what now is, I only dream about. I was exposed to it as an early age. It's pretty much forced upon me in a good way.
I think it's an Italian thing, as being coming from an Italian family myself. I think you were born hungry and we never get full.
Never get full. Never.
You started as a dishwasher and over a 20-year span have grown your career. When you go back or look back at that job as a dishwasher, did it teach you anything at all about what you might look forward to down the road in your career by working in a kitchen?
Well, actually, it was, it was a method of the madness, to be honest, because coming from the ethnic family, we could all say we know how to cook some stuff and we know how to cook, good or, whatever it is we grew up on, but that's still not what you're going to be cooking when you go into a restaurant environment, at least not yet. So I figured, well, hey, I need to get a job. I'm growing up here. So it's all right, what could I possibly do? And there was a lot of silly jobs that lasted a day, jobs that lasted a few hours, before this. And I knew, I'm you know what? I know if I go get a job as a dishwasher, one, it requires hard work. So at the least, I just got to work hard and I got to care. I knew that. And I knew it would get me one step closer to doing what I really wanted to do. And that was be in the kitchen. So yeah, you can honestly say that the day I entered as a dishwasher, it was with the motive of hopefully down the road working my way to that cooking station.
And what do you remember about going from dishwasher to cooking station? And then what do you pull back from that first cooking job and how it felt to go, okay, I got a job as a cook or a chef?
Well, I tell you, the great part was I was really happy to be working. Because it was one of those, you went from $0.00 to your minimum wage, and you were actually able to at least go to the drive-thru now and get something to eat on your own without asking your parents for the money. So in a way, it was building the independence as a dishwasher, and I was reaping the rewards of it because it was actually in the UNLV Rebels bar right as they were smashing the national championships. right as it was converting into more of an Italian-style New York pub across the street from the university. So I was kind of around familiar food and with familiar people, and washing dishes really hard. It's a double-edged sword, because here's what happens. Especially back then, even now, good dishwasher is hard to come by, okay? And so when you do get a good one, you want to merit him and promote him. At the same time, you're like, wait a minute. If you move from there, the next person might not really a double-edged sword. But what winds up happening is, especially, even if the chef has a half a heart and soul, he will notice your merit. And what will happen is eventually the knife will get put in your hands to do some prep, some parsley, a little 101 using the knife, kind of maybe slide into the dessert station. Someone didn't show up, cut some desserts, put them on the plate. So you were at least getting closer now to the kitchen side of things. Not quite the hotline yet where you're cooking food, but now you're putting stuff on plates. Tickets are coming out. You're seeing tickets come out, and now you're building. So you know how to wash dishes. You know how to use a knife a little bit. And now you're in the cold station putting salads and desserts together. So that's one step closer to, that hotline again.
Who taught you your chef skills, or did you teach yourself? Or your knife skills,
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
here's what happened. That's a great question. Believe it or not, man, and I even remember doing this. I liked it so much that I would hear, and even if you do the math, mid-'90s, late 90s, the French cuisine really ran the whole culinary world for the most part. So even the non-French chefs would still use the French culinary terminology. And God, I didn't know what half this stuff meant. Mise en place, brunoise cut. So what I'm doing is I'm hearing these words, and the more I'm hearing a word, I'm actually writing it down. And then when I write it down, I go source that information, and I at least learn what that word is. I might not have been able to do it yet, but I at least knew what that word was. And then eventually, when I started doing those things without using the proper terminology, later on down the road, the two met. When I was dicing little peppers, it was brunoise cut, and I knew that. When I was getting my ingredients together, it was mise en place. You wouldn't think to know that then, but then as time goes on, it's like, wow, yeah, those are the principle of these words, that you took the incentive to learn yourself and get educated yourself. And that was the whole build of my career. I did everything hands-on with the incentive of absorbing the information, knowing I wasn't going to be able to go to school, and at least learn something to excel, if not every day, every week, So every single experience I knew that I absorbed had to do with shifting to the next level in this industry.
Did you have then some mentors or idols you looked up to as you were starting your career then?
And the crazy part is, besides loving Julia Child, because that was really the cooking show that the ladies were watching then, there's a lot of like mom and grandma and all them, like that was like, she was iconic to her. So us watching them, worship her, we understood she was an icon. And so when I go back to original cooking shows, I see Julia, getting very, very happy as the cooking show was going on. Later to find out she was swigging whatever it was she was putting in there. God bless her. So, pretty much with the motivation of Julia Child, my mother and my grandmother, I didn't really have that mentor type person. I did it hard knock style. I had a lot of jobs. I worked at a lot of places, and I can honestly tell you the truth. Besides getting laid off after September 11th, I've never been fired from a job but once, and that was Burger King, somewhere when I was 16 years old. And so I actually learned and moved on, and I stood at a lot of jobs until I absorbed the knowledge and then went to the next level. That first job where I was a dishwasher at, where I did a little bit of prep, that was as far as I went. I had to go get another job and start off now, not as a dishwasher, but I yes, I can chop parsley. Yes, I can make salads. Yes, I can make desserts. And then that's how I worked my way to an entry-level pantry position at the next place. So instead of starting off as the dishwasher that couldn't use the knife and learned how to use the knife, and then that's what I did, is use the knife and made the salad. That was my roof that I hit at that first place where, okay, I'm not going to go any further. I have to educate myself and get another job now. One, for a little bit more compensation, because I got more bills now, and two, for the education and the knowledge of this that I won't be receiving in a school, I got to move on and take the furthest I went here, take the roof of here and make it the ground at the next place I go. And that's what I kept doing.
That's great advice. And I hope everybody caught that. And I'm going to repeat it. You take the roof of where you're at now and you make it the ground level of your next job, and you keep learning. And that's one of the best scenarios and analysis I've heard in a long, long time. I love that. Your ethic of working so hard and continually using this turnover, so to speak, of get to the top, get to the bottom, get to the top, eventually landed you being corporate executive chefs for many Las Vegas hotels like MGM Grand, Station Casinos, Binion, Sahara. That first hotel job, Chef, talk me through how that happened and how you got that break.
Oh, man. Okay, so first hotel job was not a chef job, okay? It was a cook job. So what had happened is somewhere after that dishwasher job, learning the pantry and then going to an Italian restaurant for a few years and actually working my way from the pantry to the saute station and learning prep in between. It was an Italian restaurant. I had the Italian cuisine. So when I started working my way over to the oven, I started understanding their flavors more. So in addition to that, being at this place for a few years, it was one of the few longest jobs I ever kept. And what I wound up happening, I was always like the secondary backup cook guy because I had started there as the pantry guy. So I was always like little brother. Even when big guy wasn't in, I still really wasn't put in his spot, so I never saw any type of leadership role. So here's what happened, okay? There was one more step before I go to the hotel. I didn't know how to do steaks, so I went to a local steakhouse. I went from this Italian restaurant to the steakhouse because that was one of the things that I did not know how to do yet. So I start off at this new job now. Hi, I'm a saute guy. Remember, I started off with my roof as my foundation. Now I'm coming into this new job as the saute guy. So I start now as the saute guy. Now I learn the steak position. Now I'm saute, I'm steak, I'm pantry, I'm prep, and now it is time to go to a hotel. So here's what I do. Non-strip, non-downtown. In Las Vegas, the way things are laid out, there's a lot of casinos and hotels everywhere. On the east side of town, through a friend of a family member that knew I was, getting pretty decent, and that, there were chefs out there that would like a guy like me to come in and work hard for them and relieve some of their pain. That's how I was introduced to Station Casinos, Boulder Station. And so what they wound up doing is they started me off as a cook inside of the Italian restaurant. So here I am, now I'm going back to old ways. I'm like, oh, hey, I used to be an Italian, cook in a restaurant. I did steaks, I did this. So I was very qualified for this position. So what wound up happening was you go to a hotel. It was a major celebration because now you're in a hotel. Now you have insurance. At this point, I had children, so I needed the insurance. You get more compensation in a hotel. So now you got so many employees. It's not mom and pops. And now there's really a lot to absorb because here I am in this Italian restaurant, and I'm looking around this hotel. I'm going, well, there's a steakhouse. Well, there's a Chinese restaurant. Well, there's a buffet. I'm like, how do I work in all these places? So I expressed my interest to wanting to work in the other operations that I had never worked in. Never worked in a coffee shop. Never worked in a buffet. Never did banquets. Never did any of that. So I put my name on the list to be able to be switched around. And to make a long story short, they wound up putting me in every single outlet over a 2-year span. And what that wound up doing was it gave a lot. I used to give breaks to people. Like I'd come in, I go, okay, I'm going to give you a break and you a break. And I would work their line, learn their system. And instead of working at one place, I was working at multiple places now at one time, absorbing now, in addition to what I have acquired on this journey, now hotel operations and large masses of buffets with 1,000 people, restaurants filled with 300-400 people, lasting 8, 9, 12, 24 hours a day. So the hotel thing was unreal. And it got to the point where I worked so hard and learned so much in that 2 years' time. Towards the end, they were actually bringing me into restaurants in the hotel to give chefs days off and cover for them. And what that wound up doing is allowing me to do their work, understand what they have to do, and absorbing that, because see, now I'm getting to my roof again, where I get into the next place. Now it's a foundation. I got a little bit of chef in me now. I haven't been appointed as chef yet, but now I'm about at that point where if you put me with the right executive chef, I'm going to take a lot of stress off of his shoulders, and I'm going to be able to give him a day off, and that guy's going to love it. And then he's going to give me more work, and then he's going to give me more work. Not looking to replace the man himself, but looking to absorb the knowledge he is giving me. At the same time, what he gets in return is a day off and maybe a little bit more sleep at night. And I did that for a while, man. And that right there strengthened me up to the point where now I was ready to move on to like downtown Las Vegas, you know, heavier casinos, more tourism, bigger responsibilities. And then I had moved to downtown. All right, I'm going to come up for some air, man.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, I want to go back to some things you said. When you were out there at Boulder Station and you decided, hey, I want to go through every single platform that this casino offers and go to all these different restaurants, coffee shops, Chinese, buffets, and actually take your roof and make it the ground and continue to rotate that, was there one of those that you hit that you thought, man, this is a lot harder than I anticipated, and I'm really going to have to work hard to learn to get this to be my roof?
Well, definitely. Like, you go to a buffet and you see it busy, and you work in a restaurant and you do certain amounts of prep. There is no such thing as prep until you've worked in a buffet or a banquet. It's like you can't see the container the ribs are in because you thought it was that wall. You know what I mean? Meaning like, hey, where's the ribs? Oh, turn around. I don't see the ribs. I see a wall of like pork, but I don't see the ribs. There looks like enough pork on there for 6,000 people. and so the high volume of making food taste good on a high volume I found most intriguing, because when I was a kid, you got to understand something. I was a heavy eater. We used to come out to Vegas and like my parents, food, family, food. So now I'm on the other side of these things that I enjoyed myself, getting very excited and learning how to broadcast them to the general public when I was the general public absorbing it. It was surreal. T-bone steak night. People would be like, why are you excited about T-bone steak night? It's like, because I've always been on the other side of T-bone steak night. You know what I mean? Like 800 T-bone steaks marinating. Somebody has to cook them all, and usually they run out. So the large volume was cool, and what was really cool is sometimes then they would put me in these places for a few weeks where I didn't go back to the other places. So I got so used to those places, and then when I had to go back to the other places, you kind of had to work your brain and your body a little bit to reabsorb the information of, what you're no longer used to. It was crazy. So a lot of mental, a lot of physical, a lot of mental rearranging, organizing, and absorbing. The key word is absorb.
Yeah. And Chef, if you don't mind, for the listeners, can you kind of give them, you don't have to go into big detail, but just kind of a time frame of how many hours, like say a banquet or a buffet, does it start from the time that you have to get there to you start actually putting food out?
Oh, man, no. Here's the thing with banquets and buffets, because chances are, now, you have banquets and buffets in banquet halls, and you have banquets and buffets in hotels where they have 10 to 20 to 30 different sized banquet rooms that could all be happening at the same time. Banquet is really in your setup, man. The plan of attack, your clipboard is huge in a banquet. You'll notice in a banquet hall, there's so many clipboards hanging on the walls.
Yeah.
All the different banquets going on. It's all in the prep and in the back work to load everything and keep everything in the right place for that particular banquet. That's really what it is. Banquet is more organizational. And, of course, tasting as you go, man, because you're doing massive, large batches of food now. Now you're using a measuring cup for salt, not a measuring spoon or your hands,
Can only imagine the chaos that a kitchen has that has so many things going. And you got to be a really good communicator to keep everybody flowing, I would imagine, to what's going on. And, nothing's going to run smooth. So you have to be ready for every kind of hiccup that's going to happen.
I'll tell you what, here's one that a lot of people don't know, and I'll share this. Like, there's employee dining rooms in hotels, and sometimes when the hotels are slowing down for the season, they combine the employee dining room and the banquet facilities all in one. So not only are you doing scheduled banquets, prepping for those, the ones in the next days and the ones going on now, you're also feeding employees in the hotel. So that's a whole different, like completely different thing, going on at the same time as you're doing the banquets, because it's those volumes of food. So sometimes they combine the departments, and it's happened, I'd say, in 3 out of the 6 hotels I've worked at.
You were assistant executive chef at Binion's, and then you end up going to Monte Carlo for 5 years. If you would talk about that transition from Binion's to Monte Carlo and where your expansion of responsibilities came in.
And you're perfect right now on the timeline, because I went from Boulder to Binion's. So that's perfect. So here I am. Okay, so listen. Mind you, now you're going to notice, I told you at Boulder I was a cook.
Correct.
And at Binion's I was an assistant executive chef. How in the world do you go from cook at Boulder to assistant executive chef at Binion's? How do you do that in the year of 2000? Okay. Well, I'll tell you how. This is funny. So my father had a friend, and my father, he was a hairdresser from New York, legit dude, good guy, and all kinds of good peeps from New York that was in Vegas. Always loved to just go see him because he reminded them of back home, some of the dudes and some of just everybody from, whatnot. So, hold on. So what winds up happening is my father comes to me while I'm at Boulder Station. He's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of stuck in the same spot now. I've worked in every restaurant. I've worked every shift. I know every menu. I've done everything in this hotel, and the pay is good, and I could get caught in the trap of staying here because the pay was decent." And then my father goes, "Okay, well, my friend just took over as a food and beverage director in Binion's. The owners themselves hired him. So he wanted someone, not so much with the experience, but someone that he could trust that somewhat knew the business. And that isn't the qualifications for an assistant executive chef. But if you think about it, I do know the business. I have run multiple outlets in a hotel. I do know how to cook, and I do know the tasks of the assistant executive chefs. So again, yeah, I should probably be a chef of a restaurant a few times before I jump onto the executive committee. But it really wasn't like an executive chef job. It was more like right-hand man to the food and beverage guy, but at the same time, go through each restaurant, each outlet. He gave me the freedom to run wild and go, we combined the buffet in the coffee shop. We put pasta stations in, and I got to really take the skills that I learned from Boulder Station and bring them over to Binion's. So it really looked like I knew what I was talking about. Wasn't so much of a fake it until you make it, but by no means was I a certified assistant executive chef at that point.
But it looked good on the resume.
Well, I didn't even. What's great is I didn't. This time it wasn't my roof was the foundation. I jumped off the roof and then climbed up a few stories and then jumped onto that because there was a whole bunch of what I didn't do before I received this what's known as an assistant executive chef position. Anyway, that lasted for about a year. And then what wound up happening was reality hit, and there was a stump because my last position now, I'm an assistant executive chef. I can't go into a hotel and be an assistant executive chef. Binion's was more like, hey, just get it done. It's about trust and make good food and just, do what you can do. But you can't go to a corporation and run it the way you ran it at Binion's. You know what I mean? It was a little different. Binion's, you kind of had to, do what you had to do to make it work on the up and up, and it was a great experience. So what wound up happening was I had to go back to being a cook again. But I wound up staying downtown because I met a few cooks within the hotel. And when I had gotten laid off of Binion's after the management change and they got rid of everyone and they brought a consultant in, whatever it was, I wound up getting a cook's job at, it was called Fitzgerald. And I wound up staying there for about a year. I swallowed my pride. There was even guys in there going, yeah, you're an executive chef, now you're a cook. I was like, it is what it is. But what wound up happening was I had never really did the dirty grind inside the downtown hotels. That's a whole different monster than a Boulder Station type off-strip hotel. So I wound up working in the coffee shop, working in the buffet, and they wound up noticing that even as a cook, to them, they thought I was a special cook because they were getting a lot of bang for the buck. I really wasn't on the level of a cook. I really wasn't on the level of an assistant executive chef, but I was in the upper tier of a cook that's going to come in there and know what to do wherever you put him. So I really absorbed a lot of knowledge there, but it got to the point where if I stay here any longer, I was there about a year. If I stay here any longer, I will be a cook, because there were cooks there that have been cooks for 30 years. And with what you've gotten to know about me, the whole staying in one spot for 30 years, hey, it's my job, hey, it's my Monday, hey, it's my Friday, that is not me. So that kind of made me go, okay, it's time to do it. I know I qualify to be a sous chef. I know that. I had never been a sous chef. I jumped to assist. I'm like, with everything I know for a fact that I can assist any chef anywhere for the most part, with the exception of understanding their environment for a couple weeks to catch on to it. So I went to the Monte Carlo, and that was probably the greatest move I ever made in my entire life, because it was like working at Boulder Station, but I was a sous chef. So now I had the chef title, and they put me in the 24-hour coffee shop that I had gotten the experience from Fitzgerald's in Boulder as a sous chef, and it's basic food. So it wasn't for the cuisine, it was for the management, the running the graveyard shift, the turning everything over for the morning shift, the prep throughout the night, you know. So now all my experience that I acquired in this high volume bang bang hotel situation, I'm sitting here in a coffee shop, twiddling my thumbs, but feeling good that I acquired a chef's position again at a hotel with probably some of the best pay ever. So what winds up happening, man? September 11th happened. And it was a union hotel. And no matter how good I was for the first few, the big boss had to pull me in a room, and he pretty much had a tear coming out of his eye, because I knew he really liked me. And he said, this is the part that I don't like when it comes to, you know, the union houses. Because of your seniority, even though you do for me better than A, B, and C, I got to let you go or temporarily put you on layoff. So he laid me and a couple other guys off, and it was a couple months of letting us back one by one. And then there was one guy that they were about to let back, and they couldn't find him. And it was weird, because this was a big turning point. Like, I was only a few months into the Monte Carlo. If this guy would have came back, it wouldn't have been me to come back to be able to tell you the following. Make a long story short, they can't find that other guy. They find me. I come back. I go back to the coffee shop. And for the next 4 years, I run the coffee shop. I run room service. I assist with banquets, employee dining room. That was for about 2 years. They had me bouncing around. Then they had this big brew pub that sat like 800 people, 2-story, massive, colossal brew pub at the Monte Carlo Hotel, where they wound up putting me in there. And it was like something I never really did, a big-ass crazy bar brew pub thing. I did the volume, but this was different. Now, it's like a combination of coffee shop food, but like Mexican food, but Tex-Mex, but bar food, pizzas, oysters, fried stuff, wings, fingers, but like on crazy like volume. So here I am. This is my grand finale at the Monte Carlo. I'm in that brew pub for 2 years. I work my way. What they wind up doing is they remove my sous chef title because it was a union position, and they gave me another few $1,000 to go on salary and become what's known as, you know, an assistant chef slash. They finally changed the name to Chef Tournat. So Chef Tournat was considered as a touring chef, and towards the end of me being at the brew pub in the Monte Carlo, they actually had me give breaks to the chefs in room service, in the employee dining room, in you know, all over the place. So I wound up staying there for a good like 6 years. And it was like everything that I had experienced up until that point, and then what I absorbed in that hotel, it was like, okay, I'm pretty much at this point ready for anything. But what wound up happening was there was major discouragement. This is when Mandalay had been sold to MGM. So as I was proving myself for years, this was actually a year and a half before I left. I got to go back a year and a half when I was still at the brew pub. I had proved myself so much to the people that were there that when the new people came in, they didn't know who I was. And they were pulling all their people from their properties and putting them over us. And it was like I had reached a point now where, I can't go any further. Now I know I can be an assistant executive chef. I know I can be an executive chef. I know I can be a room chef. Like, I know I can do this. And I'm here years now. I'm not gonna do it anymore. And I quit being a chef, and I threw my chef's coat on the floor, and I said, I'm done. And I left the Monte Carlo.
After Monte Carlo, you go to be the assistant food and beverage at the Sahara for a year. And then from 2007, 2009, you become the executive chef for the House of Cards Steakhouse, which was at Sahara. And during that period of time in 2008, your TV career kicks off. You win the gold medal for the Food Network Big Bash competition. Chef, how did you find out, A, about this competition, B, what was the audition like, and C, how did you manage that while you were still being the executive chef for the House of Cards?
Okay, so let me tell you right now, okay? The House of Cards, I call it House of Cards. It's actually the House of Lords, but a lot of people call it the House of Cards. So it actually goes by both of those names. People call it the House of Cards, and those of you who haven't heard that term, the House of Cards, they also refer to it as the House of Lords, which was the classic restaurant that Frank Sinatra and the boys used to eat at. Okay, so, all right. So I'm sorry. So what was your exact question again?
I want to know, how did you find out about the audition for the Food Network Big Bash competition? And then how did you balance the audition and being on that show as well as being the executive chef for the steakhouse?
Okay, so I'm going to untangle that web a little bit and give you a little clarity on that. So it was the Food Network Challenge, which was the show that I had happened to land. But what wound up happening was, remember, I quit being a chef. So in the conversion of me going from food and beverage to becoming the chef at that steakhouse again, we'll save that story because that's a story in its own. Turning point of me becoming me on who you see today. I finally became an executive chef of a restaurant where I was told the worst and best thing ever told to me. It's up to you. You do what you want. This is why I got you. So that was it. Now my juices were flowing. I knew I had something different. I knew I had the knowledge. I was one of the few tatted up chefs at that point. I had an attitude, but it wasn't like a bad, like I had a bad chef attitude, but I had a good enough attitude where it was somewhat recognizable for the TV people to want to use it. So this was a competition that I had actually went on. When I became the chef at the House of Lords at the Sahara, I was trying to get on the Food Network Star, and for several years I was making videos to send them to get onto that show. So in that, somehow I got noticed by this other production company to go compete on the Food Network Challenge, which was a one and out show while I was the executive chef of the House of Lords in Las Vegas. And we teamed up with a partner of mine, and that was also trying to get on the next Food Network Star. We went on and we won. So here I am 2 years back into being an executive chef. I've recreated the Vic Vegas thing. Didn't really use it much before then. I did and I didn't, but now it started really getting out there and getting noticed, and we had won that food cooking competition. Make a long story short, Sahara got bought by some really good people. They kept me, but I had played that game before. I knew I was going to be stuck in that one restaurant, and I wasn't going to be able to do anything. So I wound up taking a little hiatus, and I wound up taking a crack at a little bit of a catering company and opening my own deli / sandwich shop, like, I don't know, 10, 11 plus 12, 13 years ago. And that was when I finally went into business for myself and said, okay, you know what? I've done some stuff. I'm going into business for myself. I'm going to open up a sandwich shop. I didn't know that, a year after opening the sandwich shop that I was going to have to literally sleep inside of it. But I had my own sandwich shop, and it was called High Roller Deli. And it was actually the original prototype for what you see now, known as Sinful Subs. But yeah, man. So, and then I left the hotel environment for a while, and I was on my own, and it was the most hungry struggle ever.
So that's when all the food and the TV career kind of started really to roll for you. And then in 2011, you appeared on 12 episodes of the next Food Network Star and were runner-up to Jeff Moea on season 7. And what was that like? What was life for you guys like off camera? And did they house everybody together, and does everybody get along, or does everybody just kind of go their own ways?
So, okay. So then when I was trying to get on those shows, and I finally did get on that show, I had wound up now, after I had lost my business, I wound up becoming a chef at the Hard Rock Hotel, and then moved from being the chef at the Hard Rock Hotel to an actual executive chef to a boutique hotel across from the Hard Rock. And that's when the next Food Network star called me. When I was already finally the executive chef of Rumor Boutique Hotel across from the Hard Rock. So what happens was, we finally get on that show. The year I don't try to get on that show is the year Food Network called me. Because what happened was, Fieri comes in to the Hard Rock. My GM of my hotel that hired me was his friend in college. So he brings me over to the Hard Rock. I do shots with Guy. We get a little buzz, and we do a selfie. And something made me send it to the production company at Food Network, the one that I've been talking to for years, getting closer and closer to get on, but it was no. So I go, hey, I know I didn't apply this year, but just wanted to say hi. I saw a guy and I was thinking of you. I didn't know the next morning when I wake up, she goes, where are you? I go, I'm running a hotel. She goes, where are you? I need you in New York. I'm like, you need me in what? She's like, you're a semifinalist. You're in the final 30 of the 15 we're going to pick to get on the next Food Network star. I go, I didn't even apply this year. She goes, you know the deal. You could have been picked years ago for this. I said, okay, so that's how that works. And then, okay, so now to where you were, that's when I had to quit my job, quit everything, and leave and not know how long I was going to be leaving for. They told you were going to be gone 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. I go, well, what happens if you get eliminated the second week? You have to be segregated in a hotel for a month. So either way, you're either back right away, ha, 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 to your family, or you get eliminated and then have to wait, or you make it towards the end. Now, not to be conceited or anything like that, I've been trying to get on the next Food Network star for years. The fact that it happened, I had a special feeling. I never felt like I was going to win it, but I felt like I was going to go really far. So my little daughter that is here right now, that is 10 and a half, I remember when she was like a half a year old or whatever it was, or 1, and I lean over, the car is outside waiting for me, and I looked at her, and something made me say to her, baby, I'll see you in 3 months. Something made me tell her I was going to see her in 3 months. Not 1 week, not 1 month, not 2 months, 3 months. So now, of course, we go to L.A., and it all begins. They make us all meet each other at the Man Chinese Theater, and there it was. Right from there, they ship us all to our big mansion we live in the Hollywood Hills, and here I am now reenacting Food Network meets the MTV Real World. Can't believe I'm on a freaking reality show. I'm living with people under the Hollywood sign, and I have a bunch of characters around me, and I'm like, people are going to kill each other in here. It was so real, dude. It was so real. Like you didn't feel like you were making a show. You felt like you were making a show, but you really weren't making a show. You were living in the damn show. It was so insane doing that thing, dude.
And I can only imagine what it was like to be on the inside as somebody who watches the show from the outside and kind of always looking past that going, man, I wonder what they go through off camera. Because I just have a feeling there's so much more to the story that what you see on TV. It's not even a glimpse of what you guys are really going through.
Well, I was a fan every year going, I'm going to get on there. 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 And then, 5 years later, I get on there and it's like, oh my God, I'm here. And then, bro, let me tell you what happens. No matter how good you are, as soon as they say go, you forget everything, even your name. Your name becomes Abi. That was my name the first day. Like, here I am going, I got this. Man, I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing when I got there. You know what I mean? It was like, man, you think you're who you say you are, and you might be, but you better go find who you think you are real quick and make sure you're them when you're here. It was you had to be on your game 24/7, man. They woke you up with a camera in your eyeball. You know what I mean? And they followed you the whole time, had you mic'd up the whole time, and you were in complete segregation. Like you were told when to speak, when to eat, when to sleep, and then you never knew at any time when it was time for a competition. It was the craziest form of culinary boot camp with people like Alton, Bobby, Giada, Wolfgang, all of them. It's like, here I am, you got a guy like me who's been wanting to do that, and then you got everything I did, and now I'm here looking at them, looking at me, trying to kill me. It's like, what? It's like a bad, good dream.
After that show, Chef, that really kind of, made you a household name, so to speak, and then you get on to becoming on even more food competition shows like Chopped All Stars and some other things that you were in. And then from there, I want to kind of fast forward a little bit, because you go from being a competitor to actually being a judge on the other side of some food competitions. How did how did you translate that from going, okay, wait a minute, I was just begging to get on the show, I've been on the show, I've been competing, and now I'm going to be a judge?
Let me tell you what happens. One, it's absolutely refreshing to be on the other side. Two, when I was competing, like, it was like once in a while, a twist was is they made me a judge, and I wasn't properly a judge. And I knew I could be, but the camera and the TV took away from me being a judge. So I was trying to be nice, where I was like, no, it's okay. No, it's good. And Bobby hits me and goes, why is everything good? You're too nice. So that worked against me. So when I finally had the opportunity to be a judge, especially when I was doing it on FYI with Layla Ali, out of all people, it came out. It was your chance to show that you were you had it, and then you understand what the competitors are going through. You understand the insanity, that their heart's beating, and you know when to stick your nose in, to say what, to see what, to do what, to initiate what, where it was a co-host / judge type thing, where it was more of a contribution to the production and highlighting and escalating certain things that you knew the public needed to see. Because we were about 30 plus episodes of television in by then. And, you automatically learn with that camera on you on how to assist production in a better production. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, you knew what to ask when, you knew how to taste when, you knew how to judge when, you knew, how the competition was going, and pretty much what you had to do to still be fair, but magnify what the people and the viewers wanted to see. And that's how you build up your production chops. And that's how people that have been on so much eventually become producers, because they automatically learn by default.
Gotcha. Got a couple more questions for you, then I'm going to let you go. The first one is, and for all the listeners out there, if you didn't know that it goes past being a judge and being a competitor on food challenges to now you get hooked up and become the expert chef for the TV show Bar Rescue. Or how did that happen for you?
Well, let me tell you now, okay? So now, mind you, I'm on the Food Network Star. And here I am with the Mama's Boy appearance, and this is Food Network. So it's not time to go on there and be an executive chef, keep people in line, and hammer people. Even though I would watch Robert Irvine, and not taking nothing away from Robert Irvine, watching what he's doing, I would critique him to myself going, I appreciate what he's doing, but I feel I'm a little bit more attached to the regular guy than he is, because he's like above the individuals that he's rescuing, where I'm more like on the level of, hey, I am you, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So I would absorb Robert's shows, and I really felt like, wow, I never got to show my culinary chops side of a leader. So I'm going to start going for some of these competition shows. And I even went for Dinner Impossible when Robert wasn't doing it anymore, when they had put Mike Simon in. But they had looked at me, and unfortunately, the only reflection of television I had at that point was the Food Network bleeps and blops and running around and burning stuff and having fun and doing all that stuff. So they didn't know me. I didn't have the chance to show my managerial culinary skills on how I break businesses down, keep people in line, create, fix things. I couldn't show that. So to them, it didn't exist. So here I am, John Taffer, reached out to me way back when, even back when they were creating Bar Rescue. Somehow, from somewhere, I got on the radar to even be part of the conversations to be in the original Bar Rescue. But it never happened because Taffer still laughs about this. Spike told us that I was too Spike for Spike then. Spike wasn't very edgy then. And, back in that day, I almost appeared too edgy for that network. Like, they didn't want to scare people. They didn't want people to clench their purses when they watched me. So I wound up getting passed from that. And then later on down the road, when I had another restaurant that was doing fine, we showed up on the radar just as an existing restaurant for one of Taffer's shows. And he had gotten a hold of me going, hey, the restaurant's on the radar for doing the shows. And I had told John, I'm like, well, John, we don't need restaurant improvement. I said, John, if anything, I'm part of assisting with the solution of the restaurant world. I'm not in a bind where and he even understood that because he had been kind of following what I did. He knows pretty much what I can do, and he believed in me. And at that point, he said to me, he's like, you know what? He's like, you're right. And it's got to be seen that that is the case. And he stuck true to his word. He said someone would be calling me within 2 days from Bar Rescue. Someone called me from Bar Rescue. We had our Skypes. We had to do all that stuff. And then next thing you know, here I am. I finally have the opportunity to show stuff that I had been passed for. Because remember, I'm known as Mama's Boy Vic, who makes lasagna, not restaurant enforcer that can come in there, break you down, pick you up, hug you, and cry with you and make this happen. So when I got to go on Bar Rescue, and Taffer believed in me enough to give me the opportunity to meet him down in Houston, and out of all episodes, the first episode is two roid heads that hate each other. He looked at me and he said, be you and do what you do. That's why I got you here. And that was probably the best thing he could have ever said to me. It was like the executive chef at the Sahara. In a way, it almost challenged you, but in a way, he gave you his blessing on you having a purpose, and that's just why you're here. So to make a long story short, that first episode in Houston got me 19 more episodes, and we're still currently able to say that I am part of this. Going strong with the Bar Rescue family. We had to cut off our shows right now. Actually, we had to cut one off due to the current times. But, John gave me the opportunity and believed in me enough to see something in me that I couldn't display and would have never have made it to the television if he didn't give me that shot. So it worked out, and being able to have the opportunity to show my Food Network side of things and my stir and pour and fun and goofy side, I got to also show that, hey, we know a lot about this business. I help others. I love helping others. I'm creative, and I get to show it. And to be endorsed by a guy like John and to be called upon him to help him do stuff, all the way from going back when I couldn't even get a crack at doing it, it makes me feel in many ways that I'm glad I stuck true to what I believed, and I'm glad I did the right thing, to make a guy like John believe in me. And still,
Yeah.
up until today, we're going on 6 years of Bar Rescue now.
And on top of Bar Rescue in 2016, you decide to get going with what's called Sinful Subs. And people, if you're not here and listening in Las Vegas and you come to Las Vegas, make sure you check it out. And you can go online right now to sinfulsubs.com. And if you're not hungry, you're about to get hungry when you take a look at these pictures of what Chef Vic can put together. It's basically you're taking classic New York Italian flavors with the homemade recipes and a Las Vegas twist is what I've been out to find out. But Chef, where did this idea come from to go, I'm going to start a sub shop and these things are going to be over the top?
Okay, great question. So now, one thing I didn't mention is when I finally had say in my menus, when I was the executive chef at the Sahara, when I was the executive chef at the other hotel, worked at the Hard Rock, all the jobs I had from Sahara executive chef and up, I had a way of taking the classics and just totally botching them up and putting a futuristic twist on something that was collecting dust, Meaning, like, that's when I really started identifying myself. And when I started doing that, like I started doing versions of that in the House of Lord Steakhouse. So fast forward all the way to Sinful Subs now, and many things that have happened between then and now, it really is like it's about putting a classic spin a spin on some of these classics. Example, like, meatloaf egg rolls. You've had egg rolls since the beginning of time. You've had meatloaf since the beginning of time. Good meatloaf is a good meatloaf. Who don't like a good meatloaf? Who don't like a good egg roll? Well, combining the two now creates a good trend. And it's like you're getting something futuristic, but something prehistoric at the same time. And I'm able to pay homage to my mom, my grandmother, and the concept itself, which, like, only in Vegas are you going to get a meatloaf egg roll with some fried onions, and you dip it in a little bit of mashed potato and gravy. Now, I'm saying only in a store in Vegas. People do that in their homes, and that's another thing I reflect on. The stuff that you do in your homes when people ain't looking at you.
I'm looking at the menu right now as we talk, and you can't get your eyes to stay focused on one thing. It just keeps darting all over the place. So
we try to do a well-rounded concept that, represents Las Vegas and the classic flavors of one of the greatest sandwich capitals on earth, with mom and grandma's recipes thrown in there and a little bit of a Vegas twist like I like to put on the rest of my stuff. I feel it's a well-rounded concept, and I think we're slated to be the official sub shop of Las Vegas, as well as if we ever expand to other cities like I want to. It's Vegas themed. You have an actual human connected to a sub shop where I think people will at least give us a shot. And that's really all we want. We want people to just come in and see us. And if they like what we have, I'm sure they will come back on their own.
Agree. Sinfulsubs.com. Last question, Chef. Advice to the home cook. What can you give to them?
Advice to the home cook. Okay, one, you got a lot of people going, I'm no chef, but I could cook the following. Well, let me tell you now, everybody makes one dish in their arsenal better than anyone else could make it. So what I say to the home cook is stick true to what you grew up on, what you love to eat, and figure out ways. Remember, you might not be a chef and you might not know what goes in this and that. So turn it around. Go off of what you eat and how you would expect it to taste in your cooking, and then build off of that. Because if it tastes good to you, it's going to taste good.
Great advice. Vic, thanks so much for being on the show today and going back through memory lane. This has been fun. I appreciate it, man.
Man, you're the best, dude. In these times, even though I would appreciate this on a regular day, in these times, I appreciate it 1,000 times more because it's good to hear people.
Absolutely. I'm not calling it social distancing, although I've heard it now a few times that we need social interaction. So it's physical distancing. We got to keep 6 feet apart.
Good, my man.
Make sure you go subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. For show notes, go to our website, beforethelightspod.com. I will have links to Sinful Subs and other places where you can read up more on Chef Vic. Go follow us on Instagram at beforethelightspod.com. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. We will talk to you next time. Till then, be safe and keep smiling, everyone.